So gear-wise, you should be in drive. You can press the button for sport mode and leave it there. As we said, we're going to leave the traction control on. Alright, and we're going to come to a stop just before these two tall orange cones here. That'll be the starting point for the drill. So, I want you guys to come to a stop behind me. We'll stay single file. As we said back sort of in the classroom there, a big part of this exercise is just learning what the proper line is, being able to pick up reference points, and that's going to be all predicated on what you're doing visually. You've always got to look at least one step ahead of the car, and the faster you go, the further ahead you're going to need to look. Now, this first run through here, we're going to maybe do about 35 miles an hour or so. So you're going to still have to look ahead of the car, but now as we bump up the speed and maybe we get to 40, 45, 50, you've got to look even further ahead. So follow me on out. First reference cone you'll see coming up on our left is our first apex cone, alright? And I want you to put the left side of the wheels right on the edge of the curbing here. You know, we don't want to get into the grass, but you can see how close I am to this apex cone, alright? You want to essentially get as close as you can to that cone, because if you're even just a foot or two wide, you're going to have that much less room at the turn-in, which is coming up here. We have two cones set up, which represents what we call a turn-in gate, alright? You want to stay as far left as you can here. You can kind of notice some of the tire marks on the pavement. So as we turn in, our vision should already be ahead to the next apex, which is on the inside of the curbing to your right. So we want to look down to that. Before we even get to that apex cone, we want to visually be already ahead to our exit cone, which is almost dead ahead, alright? So we come close to the apex here, we let the car out, we continue to accelerate. If you notice by the dark black tire marks, this is a heavy braking zone. So we want to get out of here so we have an opportunity to do most of our braking when the car's nice and straight. It's generally not a very good thing to brake while you're turning at the same time. Now you notice, you can probably see out the driver's side, this orange cone that I'm about to turn in at, that's our turn-in cone, but you'll notice I'm right up against the edge of the track. And the reason for that is because I want to open up the radius to any given corner as much as possible, because if I can do that, the car doesn't have as much work to do, I'm not scrubbing off as much speed, it's the most efficient way through, and I can carry speed through the corner more easily. Alright, down to our next apex, and then eyes up and out to our next exit cone. And you should be able to accelerate out nice and gradually as you're able to unwind the steering wheel. Think about the relationship between the gas pedal and the steering wheel as though they were connected with a piece of string. Alright, if we tied a piece of string to the 6 o'clock position on the steering wheel and the other end of your right foot, if we're turning the wheel, do you think you can accelerate? Probably not. But as you're able to unwind the wheel, you get some slack back in the string, and that'll free it up to accelerate. Alright, so remember that. If you can't at least start to unwind the steering wheel, you really can't begin to accelerate. So here's our next turn-in gate cones, alright? Looking down to the apex. You can see there's a relative lack of great visual reference points, and the track is very, very wide, so it's easy to get a little lost, so to speak, out here. And we have a very wide gate coming up for this difficult corner ahead to kind of encourage you to get back to the right-hand side. Now, at the least, you're going to do a lift off the throttle, maybe a light bit of braking. Again, a nice wide approach, but now as you look to your left trying to find your apex cone, you can't see it yet because it's blocked by the Armco and the tire barriers. So now if you notice my position on the track, I'm at least middle of the track, maybe even slightly to the right-hand side of middle, but you're going to stay out there to begin with because this is what they call a decreasing radius corner. Gradually continue to steer down to the inside edge. Now this first cone that you see isn't your apex. It just is a visual cue to remind you want to be tight to the inside. It's the middle cone here that's our true apex. Because if we hit that and we get nice and close to it, you see how well positioned we are on the left-hand side of the road for the next right-hand corner? That's the idea. It's almost like you want to think outside in. Here's our turn-in cone. Now, a relatively what we call late apex, meaning relative to the curbing. Come onto the straightaway here, there's not necessarily an exit cone per se. They could all be perceived as exit cones, but essentially we want to stay just to the right of this lane of cones. Alright, and then as you unwind the wheel, you can accelerate out. You'll see on your left a series of 3 cones, and then 2 cones, and then a single cone. Those are essentially brake reference markers to give you an idea when to slow down. And then if you look ahead, not as far as the bridge here, but you'll see some cones that are kind of tipped over, pointing in the direction we want you to turn around in. Then we'll have you follow behind and make that U-turn. Obviously, those big orange cones kind of signify the end of that particular lap. And then we get back to the access road. The 60 cars, do me a favor, hang to your right, please, and let the other 3 cars pull up behind me, and then you fall to the tail of the group, please.